Okay, welcome to Into the Channel podcast, primarily about women's football. I am your host, Dino De Cespedes, and as always, I am joined by my co-host, Mr. Grant Engel. What is up, man?
I'm feeling all right, buddy. Busy weekend of football. Went to an event on Saturday. I think a lot of people went to a lot of events on Saturday all across this country. That was good to see. Aside from that, I went right from my event out here in Seattle. If anybody's curious, it was the No Kings protest that happened all over the country. Went to the one out here in Seattle, then got back in time for the rain match. So it was a busy and fun day. And also, for anybody in the Seattle area, there's a Whole Foods in Capitol Hill that was closing, where everything was 50% off because the store was closing. And I thought it would be chaos in there. But what gave me some hope in America was that everybody was in a great mood. And I think it's because groceries were actually affordable for that one day.
I like it. Yeah, I mean, nothing beats affordable groceries. Speaking of No Kings, Utah Royals. No, I'm just kidding. I appreciate you out there, doing that great work. I'm definitely with everything going on in spirit. There's a lot of things that I want to say, but I feel like a lot of us are feeling a lot of the same stuff, and just kind of out here doing what we can, I suppose.
That's all we can do, my good man. But on to the distractions that we like to provide around here. I thought it was a good weekend of football in the NWSL.
Really fun weekend of football. A lot of unexpected results. I mean, I think that's been the flavor of the season. I think even more so than in previous years. I think we just kind of came in. We're like, all right, we feel like we know something. Turns out we didn't really know a whole lot. And I think I don't know. The surprise results just kind of keep coming.
I hear that, and so I'm ready to talk about these matches. I'm ready to enjoy a beverage.
Same's ease.
All right,
let's go.
Cheers to you.
Cheers to the fall of fascism.
That's right. May it be quick and swift. So we're not. I don't want to start in chronological order. I'm gonna buck the trend again. Second time in a couple of weeks. Nobody else is tracking that other than me. Doesn't matter. I want to go in order of what we thought was interesting. And you, my good man, were in the building. Bay FC 0, Orlando Pride 1. Sorry, your home team lost.
No, I mean, I'll get to kind of how I was feeling later in the match, later in this segment. But really good football. I think a traditional yardstick match, right, for Bay FC. The defense is really playing well. Offense, still trying to work some stuff out. First thing you notice, Oshuala Kunanaji in the lineup together. I think second thing you notice, Silkowitz out with an illness. That was going to be tough. Replaced by 22-year-old Emmy Allen, who I thought played pretty well, but tough test for Orlando. I thought Orlando on the other side looked really good. Thinking about it's not quite a triangle. It's not quite a dime. I guess it's a pentagon of horror that starts with Sam's Nadaner, and then there's Marta, Angelina, and McCutcheon. I think those five are just impossible to deal with, and they made it really, really tough for Bay FC to kind of put anything together offensively.
Yeah, man. I walked away from this game, I think pretty highly of Bay FC, and we obviously already think highly of Orlando Pride. I think Bay FC is probably a little better than their place on the table would indicate right now, and Orlando Pride just knows how to win ugly. They can beat you with finesse, which, admittedly, they haven't done a lot this year so far. I mean, their identity is to grind you into dust in these matches, and that's exactly what they're able to do in this one.
And I think, we figured something. I don't want to say we figured something out, but there was something about seeing Sam's and Nadaner at center back, and I know there's been a lot of shifting of the back line. It was like Rafael at the beginning of the season. Then there's the Corey Dyke, there's Oyane, there's a Bello on the outside, and that whole cycle. And can Nadaner play somewhere else? I think early in the season it was much more of a shuffle, but I think this one they just kind of got back to got back to normal defensively. And it was really interesting because Kuninaji, obviously a handful, can beat any defender one-on-one. But then you see her when she does get past an Emily Sams, Nadaner's right there. And then,
Right.
Oyani's right behind her, Corey Dyke's right behind. And like, it just kind of everything's covered. And it really does start from those two just being world class and probably being the best center back pairing. I still think they're the best center back pairing in the world. And just watching them live, it's just like, but what do you do? Like, you beat one, the second one's just right there and perfectly positioned and just fresh, like high energy, ready to take on, what's left over of that duel.
Yeah, I mean, they certainly have an argument for it. I mean, what we talked about, like Renard Gilles at Lyon for a little while, obviously Paredes, and Moppy, yeah, thank you. European season ends, and I forget who Moppy Leon is. Jesus Christ, thank you for the assist there. But yeah, I mean, Sams and Nadaner are absolutely in that conversation. It feels like the Orlando Pride and their attack, going from defense to attack, they're still making everything super hard for you on defense. But then when they switch to the attack, it feels like they're not as connected as they were last season, but especially as like the season kind of started to go on, somewhere like around this point last season is really where they kind of started to ratchet up, just like destroying teams and, Benda running crazy. But that's why I think everybody in the league should be very concerned, because now they're starting to get more people back. Like Julie Doyle's on her way back. Ali Watt missed some time. She's coming back. Like now they're starting to put it together a little bit. And that's a gritty win going out west in a night game to win that match.
Super gritty win. And I'll tell you what I saw. Seb Hines wanted Ali Watt to go at Melanson like pretty hard. Melanson was up for it. So that matchup didn't work. Summer Yates, though, I mean, she's definitely coming as a young player that's just going to be a problem. Like, I think you can just see that she's able to kind of do whatever she wants to do. We talked about it last week. Like, how do some of these players that are not Banda and Marta, like, how do they fit in? Where do they fit in? Especially with sort of like all the other positions in a little bit of flux. I kind of liked the lineup that Seb put forward here in this one. I mentioned that Pentagon of Horror in the middle of the park made it near impossible. But on the Bay FC side, Taylor Huff's been really, really good all season. She was really good again in this match. She just spends much of these Bay FC matches looking like the best player, looking like the most dangerous, most creative player. And then Hannah Bibar, I thought, was really good as well. Just a really smooth player, young, kind of like the first to 50-50 balls from good positioning, fast twitch, kind of goes for it when she sees an opportunity. I thought she was really good. And then I actually got some Hannah Bibar sound.
Tough matchup tonight. Marta, McCutcheon, Angelina in the midfield, Nadaner and Sams in the middle. You're still in your first season. I think coming into the match, you had like 114 touches or so in the season. Felt like you had that many tonight. Yeah. And you talked about progressing the ball. What was working for you kind of as a connector offensively? And then what was Orlando able to do to make it tough for you offensively or for midfield offensively?
I think in the first half, something that we had to solve was Marta kind of going wide, and we talked about that, especially with when I was on Kelly, or me and Kelly were on the same side, is when Marta releases and kind of just floats in that space, who picks her up and how do we shift? So that was a bit difficult, but I feel like we responded very well to that and kind of eliminated that threat. But in terms of me trying to progress the ball, I'm just trying to be an option for the center backs and for the outside backs, and just like provide good angles. And I think in the second half, especially when they backed off of us, I was able to find some success getting it and turning and facing forward. But just being support and being an option, we talked a lot about movement underneath just to be that outlet. So especially I think when they dropped off us and we had those dangerous chances, I was able to get on the ball more and have success.
And then 58th minute, obviously, Barbara Banda gets the goal. That one comes off a quick restart. Carson Pickett, kind of quick thinking there. Didasco, who I think was really good, kind of puts the ball back into play by setting it down. Pickett just whips it upfield to Banda, who was onside, knocks it off two Bay FC defenders, gets it in, scores the goal, puts them up. And that's kind of how this one ended, 1-0. Even though Bay FC, I thought a really good defensive performance. I've seen them now 3 times in person. They've only given up a single goal. So I think defensively they're figuring some stuff out. Offensively, still some work to do. I think the one thing that would be concerning is from game to game, I'm not really seeing a lot of carryover. So this one I mentioned Huff and B-Bar I thought were really good. Previous games that, it might have been Hawking and Rachel Hill, so I think Montoya's job, I think for Bay FC is going to be figuring out how do I carry over from match to match and start building rather than just say, okay, we had some stuff in this match that looked good. What do we do from there?
Yeah, I think part of that building is just taking care of the chances that you get. I mean, Taylor Huff, I'm sure she thinks she should have scored that really early chance. It's a good stop by Morehouse, but when the ball kind of comes dribbling to her and she's on the run, I thought that was a certain goal. Again, great reflexes by Morehouse. She's standing in the right spot. But I think if you ask Taylor Huff, she's going to say, I should have scored that. And she probably should have. And it goes back to the same thing that we always talk about with Orlando Pride. Your margin for error is very slim. And so if you don't finish those chances, you're putting yourself behind the 8 ball.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, last quick on a personal note, watching the post game, I did get a tinge of regret not being able to cover this team anymore. So there was a shot of Carson Pickett and Kylie and Nadaner embracing after the final whistle. That was for me the Ralph Wiggum heartbreak Simpsons moment where I was just like, oh, I miss this team. They're so good. And then another quick moment back of house in the PayPal Park. I'm coming downstairs after the final whistle, walking over to the press room, and then I have to kind of cross the player tunnel, to get to the press room. And as I'm crossing, I hear woo woo, a little hooting and hollering, and then I see a player kind of on my peripheral. She's like kind of running at me, and then just Marta running right at me, and I kind of freeze, and I'm like, all right, do I go? Do I kind of go quickly? Because I'm kind of crossing. I'm kind of jaywalking here.
Right.
And then I'm just like, you know what? I did the dummy and I just kind of let her go. I was just like, all right, I'm going to let her go through. And then it was just a very exhilarating moment. And then she was followed very closely by an Orlando Pride equipment manager who I then locked eyes with and just said, that was Marta.
Nice. Excellent.
Very professional moment for me.
Right. You know what, though? I mean, at that point, it becomes a goat crossing. You let the goat walk by, and then, in case anybody was confused, hey, that's the goat. You know what? I don't blame you, buddy.
Yep. I almost went with that's the goat, but I went with the proper noun there in that spot. Anywho, moving on. Let's go to KC Current 4, Racing Louisville 2. I thought Racing Louisville was kind of up for it. And I think we learned a few things with this result. I want to kick it to you. What'd you see in this one?
I don't know if this is anything we learned because I think we already believed it, but I put this one second on our important o-meter when we ranked how to do the show's rundown because
7.2 importance.
Exactly, because Kansas City Current is the best team in the league, I think, right now. I mean, It's hard to argue. Obviously, they're top of the table, but Orlando's going to have to chase them. Now, just to rewind a little bit, why I put Orlando's win near the top there, because I thought it was a very impressive win. Obviously, you were in the building, all that plays. But while I believe that Kansas City, I think I can hold both these thoughts at the same time. Kansas City Current is the best team in the league, and Orlando has to chase them. And the second thought being Orlando could still catch them. So I still think it's close. I cannot wait to see these teams hopefully play in the playoffs. Let's talk about this match, but then I want to talk about when they play again next, also in the regular season. But Kansas City has everything to just rip your heart out. In this case, it was the first 19 minutes of the match, but they could do it in the first half of any match against any opponent. They just have too much skill. They're too fast. They're playing great defense. Lorena is excellent. In 45 minutes of play, they can completely demoralize you. But then, like we saw at the end of the game, sometimes there can be those little lapses too. So I don't think they're an immovable object right now, but they are definitely a force that is very hard to stop.
I think there's two ways to think about KC. Like, one, you could look at this team and be like, they didn't even really look that good, and they won 4. They
Yes.
just smacked a really good or a pretty good Racing Louisville team, we'll say.
Yeah.
You could also look at this team and say, all right, no Dabinia, Rocky Rodriguez, get in there and replace who Leanne Sanderson had as her MVP through the first 5-6 weeks of the season. Doesn't matter either. There's just so many good players on the pitch. I think we're seeing the ascension of a Michelle Cooper, 22 years old, and I think you look at some of the numbers: 4 shots, 3 on target. She obviously gets the goal, 69 minutes, completes 19 of 22 passes. She kind of reminds me. I was thinking of what kind of comp I had. I went with like Ladainian Tomlinson because
Wow.
you watch Cooper run up the right hand side, and you're just like, whoa, look at that. I mean, she can fly, and like she's dangerous. And then you see her put crosses in. You're just like, oh my god, she's dangerous. And then you just see her like cut inside, and then strike with her left foot, and you're just like, oh. The more you see, the more tools you see her kind of like exemplify. So that I went with Tomlinson as my comp. She's still super young, but she's coming in a huge way. I mean, she could end up. It's tough to say because they're so loaded, but I could see maybe let's fast forward maybe to next season, Cooper being the centerpiece of that offense, even with all of those talented players.
That's high praise with the reigning MVP right there on the roster, but I don't think you're crazy for it. I mean, now we're on a streak of every time we talk about Michelle Cooper, whether it's for the U.S. Women's National Team or Kansas City Current, where I have to talk about her ability to hit one-touch crosses into the middle at speed. I mean, it's an incredible ability she has to kind of like, to be able to like running at full speed, to turn your body, to get your leg kind of like swiveled over there. There's like motion you got to do with your hips to really hit it in so that it's played into the danger area. I mean, she's just fantastic at it. And, the physicality and just the smarts of knowing when to hit those crosses too. Like she'll take the ball right to the end line before playing it in. And then other times she'll play in the early ball. Like she just has great instincts, great intelligence. I don't think you're out of bounds here thinking that. I mean, I know you're saying if she becomes the centerpiece of that attack, then she also enters the MVP conversation in my mind.
Yeah, I think she's got to. And, you mentioned those first 19 minutes and we talk about that attack. It's funny. I was mid Blue Sky post where I was putting together a post saying, you're a great team when you haven't even played that well and you're up 2-0 after 17 minutes. I quickly had to delete that mid typing, change it to 3-0 through the first 18 minutes. It literally happened as I was typing it, that third Bia goal. And I just, the next note that I have here, KC can almost blow you out by accident. And that's kind of what it felt like because I thought Louisville was good, and you look at some of the stats here, possession, 51-49 to KC. Touches in the final third, 145 to 137 KC, pretty close. Then you zoom in, touches in opponent's box, 32-10. And I think like then you kind of start to see, okay, this is where KC really kind of tightened the screws on them. But I thought Louisville was good. I thought they looked dangerous. They obviously put up the 2 goals, Sonis and Uchenna Kanu. Sonis gets the assist on the second one. And I thought they were dangerous. I think, Louisville continues to be an interesting team. I think they are still tracking towards the playoffs. We'll talk about the playoff picture. It's a big log jam, right, in that 8-11 area. But what did you see from Louisville?
So I'm glad you mentioned Uchenna Kanu, and it goes back to if you're Orlando Pride, now obviously you have last year to hang your hat on, but now they, current beat Pride 1-0 in Orlando a few weeks back. But if you're Orlando, you kind of look at that Uchenna Kanu goal and you go, okay, set piece. Sarah Weber drags one defender out toward the corner taker, and then Uchenna Kanu just bolts right in front of Claire Hutton, and it's just easy money to head it in. I think if you look at that and think, okay, there are going to be some spots where we might be able, to find some cracks in the Death Star, as it were, even though, again, I don't think Orlando Pride looks at anybody else as the Death Star. But I think Louisville showed that they're a team with good quality, and they had some opportunities to pull a couple goals back. But can we talk about the dagger goal? Can we talk about the fourth goal from Chewinga? When that ball gets played forward, I'm going by because the way, they have the cuts in the grass, they're usually right around 5 yards a piece.
Real quick, I think there's 6 because there's 3 before you get to the 18. So I've always thought there were 6. So I could be wrong. I could look like a dummy, but let's just assume that it's 6.
Okay, no, that's great. Let's assume that there's 6. So from that angle, then I think Chewinga was about 6 yards behind Ellie Jean when the ball gets played forward. And by the time they make it the full 60 yards, Chewinga has blown by her and then is just more physical than her and scores the goal. Brings the ball into the middle and scores the goal. She's an absolute freak of nature out there.
Total freak of nature. I mean, just a marvel offensively and defense. I mean, honestly, all facets of the game, she could do all. She could do all 100%. Of it. And I think the part that stuck with me is what I like to call the little goal differential piggy bank. We've seen that come into play. Yes. Down the stretch. And where are we at? So Casey is plus 18, Orlando's plus 12. So there's a 6 goal difference between. So 1 goal, it's not nothing, right?
Right.
And I think you see championship teams do this also. It's like, all right, well, we're up 3-2. We probably got the 3 points in the bag. What else is there left to do? Let's get one here. Let's kind of like extend that lead. We're not sure when that's going to come into play. You do that a few times between here and the end of the season, and what they can do is take goal differential off the table, which essentially gives them the tiebreaker in addition to that 1-0 away win that you mentioned. So, I mean, they're playing a pretty savvy game, and I continue to be impressed by Vlatko. Bia out, Dabinia out, Chewinga out for some portions, and it kind of doesn't matter. Like he just finds a way to get the pieces together or have the culture or the offense carry through no matter who's playing, in what position. So I think you got to give props to that whole staff, just because personnel wise kind of doesn't matter. They just kind of go out there and cook.
Yeah. And I think the vibes look great. And, there's the, they're just on a string out there. I mean, sports cliches be damned. They play as a team. The double, they have to look at themselves in the mirror and say the double is a possibility for us. Cause they're just playing that well. And you talk about the goal differential. It will help if you don't have to see Orlando Pride until the semifinal, if it comes to that.
It's good to head to a team that might be in that semifinal. And I'm not talking about the Chicago Stars, the team who I like.
Oh, there we go.
The Seattle Reign, 2-2, Chicago 2. Well, Ludmila 2, Seattle Reign 2. I'll kick it to you again, the Seattle Reign being your beat. I got a couple opinions on this one, but what'd you see with this one?
So there are some times in football where a 2-2 match can be full of excitement and really invigorating and thrilling match. And then there are other times where a 2-2 match will give you several moments. Some might say only 4 moments, but a few moments that really get you out of your seat. And the rest of it is kind of played in the muck and the mire, if you will. And I don't think Laura Harvey, the manager of Seattle Reign FC, necessarily minds that. I think she's totally fine with that and her defense's playing style. And that's what it felt like here. Now, the path that they took to get to this 2-2, Brazilian superstar Ludmila scoring twice in a matter of like 60 seconds, not ideal for Seattle, but they were able to hang in there through all that muck that was, for long stretches of this game and pull out a draw. And I think to me, it's one of those ones where Seattle wins 2-2 and Chicago loses 2-2, even if that's not how you would have looked at this going into the match.
Yeah, totally agree. I mean, I think each team could walk away with some positives and some negatives. I totally agree with you there. I mean, if you're Chicago, the Ludmila sequence, it's funny. It was like 4 moments, but a total of like 6 or 7 minutes of football, where if you just watched those periods, you would have gotten most, if not all of the key action. But Ludmila, I put in my notes after the first goal that it was kind of bone chilling what she did, because she kind of put the whole defense in the spin cycle. and she just goes coast to absolute coast just off sheer, physical tools, creativity, and like just control of, just kind of like, it's almost like she can kind of, control the tilt of the field. And she just kind of had everybody kind of going the wrong way. And in my notes, I'm just like, I wrote bone chilling because I'm like, if she could do that, she could just do it again. No problem. Like, it's going to take a minute to adjust to it. She just looked that dominant in that first sequence. And then, to your point, she does it a couple seconds later. I was surprised, but also not surprised. I don't know. She just looked like, I think it was a SEAL that on our show talked about having the juice running through your legs or running through your body. And Ludmila that was the first thought that I had. I'm like, she's got all the juice running through her body right now.
100%. And so it was a real bummer to see her get taken off the field later in the match because of concussion protocols, but you got to do it. You got to keep her safe out there. Same with all the athletes, obviously. But, I felt, this is pro sports. And so you and I, like, it's not like, oh, if you feel bad for somebody out there, but Phoebe McClernand, you just have no chance in that scenario. So it's not even like, and I don't mean this like in a mean way, but I don't really feel bad for her because it's just like, what are you going to do? Like, I don't blame you for that. Like, you're running, trying to keep up with Ludmila to at least try to get in the way. I mean, we saw, to the last Champions League final, CGH had Wendy Renard turning around like that at one point. We were just like, whoa, what the, like, you don't ever see something like that. So it's going to happen to even, the greatest players, some of the greatest players in history. So, you just have no shot against Ludmila. But then Chicago, I felt like they get those 2 goals from her, and then they just started to play the turtle defense and just tuck into the shell, play the low block, and pray not to lose. And I guess congratulations, you didn't lose, but the end result couldn't have felt that great.
Yeah, a bit of a bummer. But you got to give Seattle credit. I mean, they good changes to bring on G. I think that kind of unlocked some stuff, in the attack. I continue to think that Biandolo, this avenue of like distributor, kind of like spending some time in the 10 area, just moving the ball and just kind of being involved in stuff. It keeps defenses on their heels because it's almost like you have to respect everything she could do. And she's so comfortable in front of the goal, in those spaces, facing the goal, back to goal. Doesn't really matter, like moving laterally, like she's just in her zone there. And if she's able to find other players and if other players are able to make themselves available, I think that's going to be really the key, for Seattle. But I don't know, I think there was some stuff to build on. You kind of wish that they got going a little sooner, and you kind of also wish that, they didn't give up those too early. But I think at the end of the day, like it's one of those where if you see the result without watching the game, you're kind of like, okay, we can live with it. But then you watch some of the details of the game, you're just like, this one really, really could have gone a different way. And then the last quick note too, the Angels in the outfield moment on the Jordan Bug shot where the ball just takes a turn, I'm not sure, hand of God, something weird happened. You don't really see the ball struck from that angle, have that bend on it. So yeah, again, I'm just going to chalk it up to some supernatural forces willing the Seattle Reign team into contention this season.
I think that could absolutely be a part of it. It was an outside of the right foot shot, with that kind of weirdo spin on it. It was very clearly a cross for Heidema to get on the end of, but it was just out in front of her. In the post-match press conference, Laura Harvey said that Jordan Bug immediately admitted that it was a cross. It was not a shot. But like I always say, they all count the same in the record book. And when your agent goes to negotiate, it's still a goal. He's not going to be like, well, a goal, well, it should have been a cross. Like, no. That's a goal. And it's an equalizer in an important spot. Yeah, I thought Sam Menti played well again. Darlene looked pretty comfortable in this new kind of left wing back spot. I know there's maybe a little bit of consternation on Seattle Reign internet of like maybe play Darlene further up the field. But if you're going to have a player with great size who is fast and has the ability to play offense, defense like that, I think you could probably bet that Laura Harvey's going to ask her to play more offense, defense, and maybe skew a little, give some of that support on the defensive end. I like Adamas being out there too. So if that's the way you got to get Darlene and Adamas on the field at the same time, then I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to go out on a limb here. I think I trust that Laura Harvey knows what she's doing, so I'm gonna back her on that. The other thing I want to point out, I'm glad you mentioned G, because also in the post match press conference over Zoom, because obviously they're in Chicago, but over Zoom, I asked Laura Harvey what was part of the difference in the second half, and she immediately pointed to G coming onto the field and kind of creating some more space in the middle, giving the defense a little more to think about. And that's kind of what ended up leading to the Biondolo goal.
Love it. Yeah, I think I'm just checking my notes here. Okay, yeah, we'll get to it in a little bit. No, I appreciate you hopping on the Zooms and virtually. The fire that you hold Laura Harvey's feet to isn't as warm when it's virtual, but nonetheless, you're there. you're just letting her, reminding her that you're there, letting them know that you're holding everybody accountable. I appreciate that.
Yeah, well, thank you, buddy. It was my first time getting on like an away game Zoom, and I was like, oh yeah, I have access to this, and sometimes I'm like running around taking notes myself. Then after that match ended, I was like, yeah, don't be stupid. Like join the Zoom and ask some questions. And so I talked to Madison Curry and Shea Holmes as well, and what they said about the Jordan Bug shot was they weren't surprised that she scored because they want her to be in that position around the box, especially around set pieces, because it was Madison Curry's phrasing. She said something very close to, we want her there because we expect her to score. I mean, which I think at this point she's probably showed enough that it's not an unreasonable expectation.
Won't be the last Jordan Bug goal we see. I don't think. By the slightest. Let's go ahead though. Interesting one. This one went down today. Portland Thorns 2, Washington Spirit 0. I got some thoughts here. I mean, I think the first place my mind went, was last week watching this Portland side and commenting on the midfield of Sugita, Coffey, and Moultrie, calling that a torture chamber. And then this week, just how about a little Jesse Fleming injected into that, who all of a sudden looks into a whole other set of problems for defenses to deal with, and definitely made her presence felt in this one.
I had a feeling that you and I would be aligned on this, and it's what we've talked about Jesse Fleming since when we covered the Champions League for the first time, our maiden voyage doing that, she was just moving from Chelsea over to Portland. Mm-hmm. And the thing about Jesse Fleming is, if it's a Jesse Fleming game and the other players are playing up to their standards, you might be in real trouble as an opponent, because when she gets really cooking like that and she just starts kind of dictating where the ball is going and how the offense is moving, it just creates, like you said, it's perfectly stated by you, it creates a brand new set of problems for the opponent where they're like, okay, well, we've been trying to account for Moultrie and Coffey, and obviously Sugita and Rylan Turner is looking more and more like a world beater every match, it feels like. Now you got to deal with the 24, with the Canadian midfielder. I want to say she's 24. Was she somewhere in that ballpark, right? 27, pardon me. But yeah, I mean, she was just there to make life miserable for the Spirit. And the last thing, like my jumping off point here is, I've been hesitant over this first 40-ish% of the season to change my mind on some things. I'm changing my mind on Portland. At first I was like, wait and see. I don't know. This thing could eventually fall apart. This thing is, I don't think it's falling apart. I'm just going to go ahead. Raising my hand, loud wrong before the season. This thing's not falling apart. They're really, really good.
They are really good. And I think your point on Fleming getting cooking is such a great one, because Fleming's the kind of player where her moves get more elaborate and trickier as the match goes on. That Rylan Turner goal, it was almost like watching somebody do a cross, when Fleming kind of scoots the ball over to Turner. It's almost like somebody doing a wicked crossover, but then not catching it with the other hand and then just somebody else catching it and then dunking it. You're just like, I've never seen that before, because it looked like she was sliding the ball across, but it was a pass. It was just like, okay, that totally fooled me. What a tremendous, and there was a nutmeg against, the mechanics of that play were unreal. I would love to see some of those AWS calculators doing some numbers on just how ludicrous that play was. But yeah, Portland, absolutely tough. They just create a ton of shots. They create a ton of chances. The midfield is devastating. Washington not being able to figure out what they wanted to do in the midfield, where they wanted to go, and just like that little bit of hesitation. I mean, Portland just kind of all over it. And I mean, just took full advantage today and really just overwhelmed a team that I think coming into this, I think all of us expected, hey, Washington, this is a better team. This is a better roster. But I think completely got overwhelmed today.
Yeah, and it's important to point out, and I think they had said it on the broadcast. I might butcher this a little bit, but I know it's at least close. So Croy Bethune's first full 90 that she played was last week, I want to say. Yep, it was last week against the Courage. And I think Hal Hirschfeld, if it wasn't today, maybe it was last week. I don't even think it could have been last week. I'm doing the quick fact check live as we record. But yeah. Her first full 90 was against the Courage as well. So you got to give the superlative parts of that Spirit midfield some time to continue gelling, but you don't have that time when you play Portland right now. So I think that's why they didn't look that effective. Aubrey Kingsbury really, really had to work. I felt like she held up the best she could. There wasn't a lot she was going to be able to do on either goal. And so, it was convincing from Portland, who I think are undefeated at home. Washington Spirit has been road warriors all year, but they just walked into a bad situation here. Portland is really cooking, and there's things are in a little bit of flux right now in Washington. So, what's it going to mean for the end of the season? We'll see, but you get Rodman back, you get Sarr back. Things are going to change, but I'm just keeping it in the back of my mind to just see what Portland could look like in the playoffs.
I mean, I think they're going to be dangerous. When you have that much, they're just built a little differently, I think, than we're used to. And I don't think we can really call them a contender, but they're now fourth best goal differential in the league, fifth on points, 3 points behind the Washington Spirit side that they just handled pretty easily, but they're 4 goals ahead in goal differential. So this is somewhere between the fourth, fifth, sixth best team in the league so far through 12 matches. And it doesn't look any kind of fraudulent. This team was super tough. The Spirit on the other side, I thought they looked a little off kilter, like a little miscuey early on the Turner goal. They're completely flat-footed. I don't think it's an issue of personnel or talent or, hey, this team's missing player. They're just not really playing connected ball right now. They're just not really able to kind of put things together. They've got good players out there. You can't really be like, oh, well, fix the player situation. They've got players. They do have superlative players that are not playing, but it doesn't mean the players that are getting minutes aren't up to the task. You can definitely make the case that talent-wise, this might have been a push, but Spirit definitely got to figure some stuff out, figure out what that new identity is going to be, figure out offensively what they're going to look like post Geralda's. And I think defensively too, they probably got to make some adjustments to kind of firm things up, because they've given up some goals this season as well. 19 allowed in 12 matches. That's not really fitting the profile of a top 5 or 6 team.
Oh, that's a great call. Yeah. I mean, we knew that. I was real high on the Narumi pickup as a defensive midfielder. I think she has played well for them.
Really good.
And, you got to cycle Bernal in there as often as you can. But, yeah, there's just they haven't quite gelled. And so it'll be interesting to see what happens coming out of the international break, I think, because, they're going to have players who are going to get distributed around the world on that international break too. So, we're going to end up seeing how that looks. Obviously not going to count them out at all. But like you said, it's just something to note, something to kind of keep in the dossier moving forward. Like, okay, this team can be had.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'll definitely keep it in the dossier. I'll just keep my dossier next to my ITC personal record book here on my bookshelf.
There you go.
All right, let's go ahead. Houston 2, my San Diego Wave 3.
There we go.
What a barn burner. I mean, this is some really good football. This one had shades of a previous match as well. Possession 50-50, passes attempted. This one's fun. 470 to 470. Houston actually completes 8 more passes than San Diego. But then you zoom in again, passes into the final third, 111 to 665 for the Wave. They were also more accurate. They were 78% to 73%. Touches inside the opposition box, 40 to 13 for the Wave. Shots 18 to 11. Shots on target 10 to 3. So really where it counted, the Wave were pretty dominant. 8 different players logged a shot in this one. And I think the main takeaway watching this Wave side, they just have, you could count Sheridan in this. They have 11 players that are one pass away from getting the ball into the penalty, the opponent's penalty area. And it's like whether it's a pass or a drive or a run or a 1-2, like they're just that close. Every single player understands the geometry of how to get the ball up the field so that we're 1 or 2 passes away from actually scoring. And watching that whole team work together, even Lundqvist in the back, Baroni in the back, these are all super offensively smart players. And I think we see it week in, week out from this Wave side.
Yeah, man. They just have a lot of different ways to hurt you. There is something that made me raise my eyebrow, though. Obviously, Maria Sanchez scores a goal in this match. She scores the 3rd goal. The reporting right now from ESPN Cesar Hernandez is that San Diego Wave is in serious talks to return Maria Sanchez to Tigres in Mexico. Now, I'm guessing they won't do that for free, so I'll be interested to see what the piece of business they'll try to, follow that up with. But I was a little surprised by that, to be honest. Like, you would think that, Sanchez might think, like, okay, we got a new manager in here. People have their opinions on Adevall, but it's not like this guy came out of nowhere. Like he coached Arsenal, he's coached elite players. You have Cascarino, Dali, McCaskill's playing better than we've ever seen her play, certainly. So it makes me kind of wonder, like, why do you want to get out of there? But while I've firmly changed my mind on Portland, I think I still need some convincing on San Diego Wave. I don't think I'm holding out, man. I don't know.
You've got just the guy to do it. Let me tell you.
There we go. Because I know you're way in on this team. Conceding too late. Now they were great plays. Obviously, the Yasmin Ryan play. Get the fuck out of here with that. That's unbelievable. That was a Marshawn Lynch beast mode type of moment of just like, I'm taking this all the way down there and getting the finish
in a big spot too.
In a big spot, and so to really make him super live to walk away with a draw, and so there was just a little bit of that I think with the Wave, I'm like, okay, some of my skepticism is warranted. Now, obviously, they're not nearly as they're nowhere near where I thought they would be in the table at this point of the season, but I got my eye on them. I don't know if I trust them yet.
Interesting. I did take note of that. It's funny because right around the 60th minute, I wrote down San Diego offense looking either a little stagnant or a little bored because they just looked flat. And then it was a couple minutes later, I'm like, they're tired. you look at it, they zoomed it to Hannah Lundqvist. She's from the Scandinavian part of the world. I think she's Swedish, and she had that flush, just like, it's hot out here and I'm tired.
Yes.
Kind of look to her skin. And I think on the Sanchez note, San Diego's loaded. You mentioned those 3 connectors, Cascarino, Dali, and McCaskill. They're just absolutely balling. And then they've got the young players. They've got, you could throw Gia Corley in there, who's awesome. Sure. But you've got Kimi Ascanio, Melanie Barcenas, Adriana Leon. I think one of the show favorites for sure. She's now definitely in rhythm with regards to the San Diego Wave side. And then I wrote down the second goal because the connectivity of this team is just insane. So check this out. So Sheridan's got the ball, waits and waits, gets it to McNabb, to McCaskill, to Dali, to Cascarino, to Leon, who miscues. She turns it over. And then Cascarino almost immediately forces a bad pass. That's when it gets to Lundqvist, who dinks it back into Leon, who seals a defender on her back and then smacks it in for the second. But you've got 7 players touching the ball in the lead up, and all of them playing an important role to kind of get it there. And then Leon finishing, which is kind of what we've been waiting for since that signing. So maybe a little bit of a talent, overflow, and they feel like they can kind of make a move there. I think obviously Sanchez has been good. This is her first headed goal. I mean, that was like a thing of beauty. But again, it's Dali and Cascarino playing 1-2 on the right-hand side. And then when they get bored of doing that, Cascarino's like, I'll just knock one into Sanchez's head and just notch another goal here just to kind of switch it up. I mean, they're super duper talented. I wouldn't take too much from conceding 2, but I think worth noting for sure.
Yeah. And, we get to see, this is one of my favorite parts about football is Washington Spirit coming off a disappointing result and San Diego Wave coming off what looked like it was going to end up being a dominating victory. And then, their opponent kind of gets back into it and they got to see it out. Now they're on a collision course, last match before the international break. I mean, let's go. That should be a good football game.
Love a collision course. Let's go. Cannot wait. Let's go ahead, though. Angel City 1, North Carolina Courage 2. Some compelling stuff here. Some fun stuff here. A good football match. Where do you want to get started?
Yeah, this was a football game now. I enjoyed the hell out of this one. Courtney Vine scores in the first minute on a great pass from Manaka. I think that's kind of what you were hoping to see, when you make the Courtney Vine signing of like, I want to see her run past defenders and get in behind defenders. And then Manaka with like that perfect, like swirling pass. Again, going back to me being maybe a little stubborn and not wanting to change my mind. This is kind of the beginning of what I want to see from North Carolina Courage. Like, we've talked about their kind of slow plodding style, that European style, and their possessive style under Sean Nahas. In this match, they lost the possession battle, 54-46, which I don't think happens a lot. Now, I'm sure our pals will correct me if I'm wrong here. Maybe it's happened a little more often this season, but that's really kind of not. I didn't super expect that. I'll say I don't know if it's totally uncharacteristic for Angel City, but I think North Carolina is starting to figure out different ways to win matches with this new personnel. It ended up being a dogfight out there because Riley Tiernan, she smashes home that header. It was a perfect pass from Giselle Thompson getting down the right wing. The Thompson sisters continue to show flashes where Alyssa Thompson is very clearly a superstar, but Giselle Thompson keeps showing things where I'm like, okay, so she's a star, like who's maybe max upside, could be a superstar, borderline superstar herself. Yeah. So Angel City put in a great fight. Obviously, the Brianna Pinto goal doesn't come till the death, but I think let me just I'll go ahead and do it. Here comes the North Carolina Courage.
Hey, let's go. I like it. They got shots up today, 24-13, looking like Nick Young out there. 9-2 shots on target. They had that advantage. The Courtney Vine goal happens before I was able to even get the match. I wasn't able to have my doc open, but it's already 1-0. And then that Tiernan goal, great professional headed goal, just kind of like impossible to. You just love to see the placement on it. It's like you're not going to get anywhere near this. Had time, finish it super clean, back into scoring form for Tiernan. In the midfield, though, it doesn't feel like they are able to do anything. Moving the ball, advancing the ball, like up the pitch. If it's not that one of the Thompsons kind of like beating a defender, wide. They don't have a ton to go to, but they're still kind of finding a way to get shots up. The shots aren't of the highest quality, so that we're not really, we can't really kind of hold that against them. But I do wish that we saw more from Alexander Strauss so far. I don't want to go as far as to say the team is kind of like backsliding, but they got off to a nice start. They haven't improved since Strauss has come on board. A couple down results doesn't necessarily mean that they're heading in the wrong direction, but it's clear that they haven't sort of figured out their new brand of football. And you just kind of hope that something like that happens before it kind of gets too late in the season. We're sneaky getting close to a point where you might want to have some of these results back.
Yeah, that's understandable. I think obviously we talked about Svendas Jane Jones Doe here. The cavalry's coming. I think she's going to fit in kind of in a very direct play, direct attack kind of way. I mean, we've already seen her size, skill, speed. You add her to Alyssa Thompson running at you with Riley Tiernan's ascent here in this season. I think that was like her 7th goal, I think, this year. So I mean, that's nothing to be ashamed of there. And they're in the logjam that you talked about. They're sitting on 15 points. So, it's not panic time for them. It's time, for them to kind of figure out what they got to do moving forward to get some goals. And I think we're contractually obligated. We got to have faith in Strauss. He's from Bergen, Norway. Oh, yeah. He's our guy. We got to give him some time and let him do what he does.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I'd love to see like a whole transfer window happen as well to kind of see how creative they can get there. But yeah, you mentioned that logjam. 4 teams on 15 points from 8 to 11. Gotham FC, they're +4 goal differential. Bay FC's -2. Angel City -3. North Carolina Courage -3. So big result for the Courage here. They pull even with Angel City on points and on goal differential. But 8 to 11, man, 3 of those teams, maybe all 4 of those teams, who knows, might be outside looking in come playoff time. I don't know. Some good teams are going to be outside looking in this season.
Yeah, I mean, you say Racing is solid. I think I agree with that. It's one of those weird anomalies, though, where Racing has a -5 goal differential. Worse than all those other teams, even though they're sitting on 17 points. Mm-hmm. Ahead of all those teams on 15. So I'm sticking with North Carolina Courage. I think the ascent starts now, and they're in luck because even though I think Houston Dash is obviously much improved from last year, they kind of get a little bit of a reeling. Houston Dash have lost 3 of their last 4, and they get them coming to carry North Carolina. So that should bode well for the North Carolina Courage, but oh wait, we're talking about the NWSL. So what the hell do I know? What is actually going to happen?
Yeah, I'm looking at to your point, the XG differential. Courage sit in 6th in that category at +2.8 on the season. Racing Louisville sit in 4th, +3.2. And to your wave skepticism, they are looks like they're in 7th or 8th at -0.7 XG. So some anomalous stuff maybe potentially there to keep an eye on. I'm not going to mention where they're at, but I don't know, just to ignore that stat. Well, we'll talk about that later. Let's go ahead.
Well, yeah, that's totally fine. I think there is something to that, though. I think if you're way we don't pray at the altar of XG necessarily, but if you're like way outperforming your XG early in the season, it feels like that catches up to you.
Yeah, I mean, Mike Watts had something about that, and it's such a cloudy stat because if you're consistently out kicking the XG, that's good. I mean, it's a data point to look at, and does have some interesting stuff to say with regard to XG differential and what role that could play. As the playoffs take shape. I feel kind of silly talking about the playoffs, but you got to do it. We're 12 matches in. We're near the halfway point. And I think ultimately these results, some of them are starting to matter, and I think you can look at Utah and you could look at Chicago. They're way, way, way behind. I think Houston still sort of alive, like in 12th.
Sure.
but you've got 12 teams that are relatively still, you can talk themselves into really, really being in the playoff mix. So as we go down the stretch, you're going to have 8 play 10 and 9 play 12. And these are going to get really, really, edgy, as the stakes kind of get ratcheted up here. So that's definitely what we're going to be watching, for sure when NWSL returns after the July break. One more game to hit though. Utah Royals 0, Gotham FC 3. Things continue to wilt in the land of the Royals. The Royals just trending way down, no matter the dimension.
That's right.
And Gotham, the Bats, find a way to get a really, really much needed 3 points and do it in a little bit of style.
Yeah, man, Utah's bad. They, it looks so easy, and I know Gotham FC has good players. I mean, Esther is leading the Golden Boot race, but it looks way too easy for attacking players to be running in behind Utah's defense. Like it's too commonplace to There are times where you're just like, man, really well timed to run there, good execution. And then other times it's just like, okay, we're doing this all game then, huh? Where the attacking players are just running by your defenders for the majority of the match, and so they're just too easy to beat right now. I know that's another silly football cliche, but they just don't put up a lot of resistance for long stretches of the match. And I know that they've been able to pull goals back and have showed some fight in some other spots, but you give up the one goal in the first 10 minutes, and then you give up that Howell goal right before you get into halftime, pardon me. You're just barely giving yourself a chance.
No shots from Sentnor, no shots from Monahan, attempted, not even on target,
Right.
So that's 90 plus minutes Monahan replaces Sentnor. No shots from that spot on the field. 90 minutes, that's got to be devastating. They only managed 6 shots in the match, 3 on target. And, you look at where I still have the XG differential stat up on my computer. XG allowed for Utah. How about 25.9? Way worse than the league. The second worst is 18.2.
Jesus, come on, man.
There's 7.7 goals between the worst and the second worst. XG differential, Utah's minus 16, second worst in that category. Chicago at minus 7.6. Utah's more than double as bad as so. However bad Chicago is, Utah's twice as bad. They're really playing poorly. Just kind of not able to. And it's weird that there's some interesting players, some players offensively that can do some stuff.
Sure,
but just not able to put anything together on either side of the pitch or in the midfield. Things look really, really dire in Utah, probably in need of a little bit of culture reset, a little bit of personnel reset as well. Who knows? I'm not gonna go to the coach joke, but Utah in a bit of a rut.
Yeah, I would say that's a polite way to put it. I think, things are gonna have to change over there. Jimmy Coonrad, he signs the deal before the season starts. Is he going to survive this season is a real question. You just have to ask it at this point, because they're just a total disaster right now. And they should, I just don't think they should be this bad, but they're going to have to do something in the transfer window. Mandy McGlynn, we're talking about a keeper that Emma Hayes is looking at for the national team, and she's just getting put in no-win situations pretty often. So I don't know. They're gonna have to figure something out over there. But if you're Gotham FC, you just kind of look at this and say, we're the better team. We're gonna get this done, and then we'll see it out with 8 field players if we have to. So I thought that was something to behold as well. You often don't see 2 red cards for one team in the same match. The Jess Carter red card I thought was obvious. It was a clear denial of a goal scoring opportunity, of an obvious goal scoring opportunity. DOGSO, one of my favorite acronyms. And then Howells, it was a stamp on the foot, and she was already on a yellow, so I could see it. I mean, I didn't love it. there might be some just Jalen Howell bias in that because I like Howell as a player a lot. But, if you're Gotham FC, you're just like, sure, well, it sucks that we'll lose players to the red card suspension, but they just took the Royals out. They took them out of it early, and they never looked like losing it in any way.
Yeah. I think usually look worse than they are, even though I read off those stats, and Gotham probably looked a little bit better than they are. But they played the match. Those are the results. Three much needed points for Gotham. Utah still in the cellar. We'll see what happens from here. All right, man. As you mentioned, good slate of football. NWSL Week 12 in the books. Anything else you want to hit before we get out of here?
I think that's it. Hour 5, hour 4 that we got this done. Still trying to fine tune it, figure it out, but everything that was said on this podcast absolutely needed to be said. I just can't see it any other way.
One more quick thing that needs to be said. Shout out to Jill Lloyden, who commented on the short corner. I didn't get a chance to ask Montoya about that, but in the 43rd minute of Wave Dash, a short corner was taken. And Jill Lloyden, I've got the quote here. She says, "It's a 3v2. That's what you try to generate in the run of play." End quote. Because she was just like, "Hey, this short corner is working." The three in that scenario also. Dali, McCaskill, and Cascarino.
That's tricky for the opponent.
That helps when you got that much talent. But yeah, that was the last one, kind of quick thing I wanted to hit. So appreciate Jill Lloyden for just putting a hand up for the short corner along with the boys. All right, man. Episode calendar, real quick. One more NWSL weekend before the Euros kick off July 2nd. We'll be kicking off our UEFA Women's Euro 2025 coverage with a mega preview of our own. Look out for that in the lead up to the tournament. Or maybe you can just hit that little subscribe button. And then after that, hit that little tiny bell button, at which point you won't even have to do anything. We'll come straight to you with this Euros coverage. You could just sit there, your phone will just buzz. And it'll be us getting you ready for the Euro 2025 coverage. So make sure you're subscribed. Make sure your little dingy bell subscribed as well. We look forward to rocking with you for sure. And we also launched our NWSL collection. Head over to our link tree in partnership with Fanatics. Go check out that link. It is in the show notes of this episode. All right, man. I'll ask you again. Anything else you want to hit before we get out of here? Shout out to the dads. Shout out to the grandpas. According to our YouTube analytics stats, we've got a couple of grandpas in the audience. So shout out to them on this Father's Day. Some dads, no dad as well. But as a formality, now for real, anything else you want to hit before we get out of here?
No, I think that's it. I mean, you cover how the subscribe button works, how the alert button works. What else could you want other than, oh, look, two dudes talking about women's football. This is the show I've been looking for. It's just coming right to your phone. Just delivered right there. And as you said, also for free. So, what could possibly be better than that? I'm glad you explained that to our pals. And, thank you to everybody who locks in with us in that way. We do seriously appreciate it.
Absolutely. All right, man. This has been another episode into the channel. Thank you for hanging out with us. If you enjoyed the show or love women's football as much as your boys do, make sure you're kicking it with us each and every single week. Like if you liked, subscribe, follow YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you like to watch or listen. Leave us a review over your favorite podcast app. We want to hear from you. We love hearing from you. Links to all of our socials and show notes of this episode. And a big thank you to my host as well, Mr. Great Angle. One of the favorite dads in my life. I know we're dad in different parts of the country, but he's a special guy and a special dad. I'm sure. I've seen you in dad action in very brief stints, and I was impressed, man. What can I say? I appreciate you, bro.
Well, thank you for the kind words, my good man. And as I always said, the couple times I joined our pals over at Shades of Blue on the Lit stream, because of the timing of that, I always tell them I have to join that show because you're busy out here being the dad of the year, taking your responsibilities seriously, doing what you got to do for the young champion over there in your life. So, yeah, shout out to all the dads. Yeah, it's about time men got some credit for something in this world. That's what Father's Day is about, right? But no, seriously, thank you guys for watching. We appreciate it, and we will see you all next time.